Kim Kardashian sat in her sleek modern living room in Los Angeles, her fingers nervously tapping on the armrest of the couch. The air in the room seemed to be filled with anticipation, a palpable energy that seemed to reflect the excitement of the day ahead. The rumors had been swirling for weeks. Tonight would be the night she would meet Beyoncé. The event was a highly anticipated launch party, and everyone from influencers to celebrities had been buzzing about it. But for Kim, this was more than just a glamorous evening. It was the chance to finally meet one of the most powerful women in the entertainment industry, someone she admired deeply. Her assistant entered the room with a clipboard in hand, a familiar expression of urgency on his face. "Kim, everything is set for tonight, and Beyoncé just confirmed she's attending." A thrill shot through Kim's veins. She had heard stories of the unmatched aura Beyoncé carried into every room, how she could captivate an audience with just her presence. The thought of meeting her in person sent waves of both excitement and nervousness through Kim. As the evening approached, Kim made her way to the event, mentally preparing herself for the moment. She thought about her own journey, how, over the years, she had transformed from a reality TV star to a business mogul. Yet despite all her achievements, there was something uniquely intimidating about Beyoncé. Kim had always been in the spotlight, but there was something about Beyoncé that transcended fame. Beyoncé wasn't just famous, she was a cultural icon, a living legend. The idea of standing in front of her was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. When Kim arrived at the venue, the buzz of the crowd made her heart race. The red carpet was abuzz with flashing cameras and excited chatter. Everyone was on edge, waiting for Beyoncé to arrive. Kim, despite her own fame, found herself suddenly overwhelmed by the sea of people around her. She had attended countless high-profile events, but this felt different. There was an undeniable energy in the air, and she could feel it deep in her bones. And then the moment arrived. Beyoncé walked into the room. It was as if time itself slowed down. The moment Beyoncé stepped through the door, the entire atmosphere of the venue seemed to shift. The crowd parted as if making way for royalty. Beyoncé was dressed in an elegant, form-fitting gold gown that shimmered under the lights. Every movement she made graceful and deliberate. Her presence was magnetic, and even from across the room, Kim could feel the aura of power surrounding her. For a brief moment, Kim stood frozen, completely mesmerized by the sheer magnitude of Beyoncé's presence. She had seen her perform countless times on stage, admired her from afar, but standing in the same room as her was something entirely different. Beyoncé wasn't just a star, she was a force of nature. Kim took a deep breath and reminded herself of the importance of the evening. This was her opportunity to connect with someone who could potentially help her in ways she had never imagined. She knew she had to make the most of it. As she approached Beyoncé, her heart pounded in her chest. She felt small, almost childlike in the presence of someone so powerful, and yet she couldn't help but feel a deep admiration for the woman in front of her. Beyoncé was someone who seemed to possess everything: beauty, talent, power, and grace. Kim, on the other hand, had always been more concerned with managing her public image and maintaining her success. But tonight, she felt vulnerable, unsure of what to say. Kim cleared her throat as she reached Beyoncé, offering a nervous smile. "Hi, Beyoncé," she said softly. "I just wanted to say that I'm such a huge fan. I've been watching you for years and I've always looked up to you." Beyoncé turned to face Kim, her expression warm and welcoming. There was no hint of superiority, no coldness that Kim had expected from someone of Beyoncé's stature. Instead, Beyoncé smiled, a real, genuine smile. "Thank you, Kim," she replied, her voice calm and smooth. "I admire your work as well. You've built something incredible, and it's clear how hard you've worked for it." Kim couldn't believe what she was hearing. Beyoncé, someone she had always seen as unreachable, was complimenting her. It felt surreal, but there was something about Beyoncé's demeanor that made Kim feel at ease. It was as if she wasn't just a fan meeting her idol, but two women connecting on a human level. The conversation continued, and Kim quickly realized that Beyoncé was not just a celebrity. She was someone who had a unique understanding of the world. someone who had been through the highs and lows of fame and had learned to navigate them with grace. In many ways, Beyoncé was a reflection of everything Kim wanted to be, but had never quite figured out how to become. And then, as the conversation deepened, Kim began to notice something unexpected. There was a calmness in Beyoncé that Kim had never experienced in herself. While she had always been known for her confidence, her ability to take control of any situation, there was something different about Beyoncé's presence. It wasn't just about confidence. It was about something deeper, a sense of peace and self-assuredness that radiated from within. Kim felt a pang of insecurity rise within her. She had spent so much of her life in the public eye, fighting to maintain her image. But in this moment she realized she had never truly understood what it meant to be at peace with herself. The night seemed to stretch on, and Kim couldn't shake the feelings of awe and admiration that had been stirred within her by Beyoncé. As the party continued around them, the two women continued to talk in quieter corners, far from the glitzy crowds. Despite the noise of the event, there was a peaceful aura surrounding them, as if the world had momentarily stopped to allow this intimate conversation to unfold. Beyoncé's voice was calm and soothing, yet her words carried the weight of wisdom. "You know," she began, her eyes locking with Kim's, "being in this industry, it can be easy to lose yourself, to get caught up in what everyone expects from you, to always be chasing the next thing. But the truth is, the most important thing you can do is stay true to who you are. People can sense when you're being authentic, and that's what draws them to you." Kim felt a wave of emotion hit her. She had always been seen as someone who could handle anything, who was always striving for more, always pushing forward. But hearing Beyoncé speak about authenticity made her question everything she thought she knew about herself. For the first time in a long while, she began to wonder if there was more to life than just building an empire. Was she truly being herself, or was she constantly conforming to the expectations of others? As Beyoncé continued, Kim listened intently, her mind racing. "I used to think that if I just worked hard enough, I would be happy. But happiness, Kim," she said, pausing to let the words sink in, "isn't about what you achieve. It's about being content with who you are, with your purpose. You have to find peace within yourself before you can find true success." Kim's heart ached at the realization. She had always been driven by ambition, by the desire to prove herself. But now, in this quiet moment with Beyoncé, she started to feel something deeper stirring inside her, a longing for peace, for balance, for something beyond the spotlight. Beyoncé's words cut through the noise in Kim's mind. "When I started out, I was just like you," Beyoncé continued, her voice soft but strong. "I wanted to make an impact. I wanted to be recognized. But over time I realized that it wasn't about the accolades or the fame. It was about using my platform to make a difference, to inspire others. That's what gives me purpose now. It's not about chasing the spotlight. It's about creating light for others." Kim felt as though a veil had been lifted from her eyes. She had been so consumed by the pressure to keep up with the constant demands of fame that she had lost sight of what truly mattered. In that moment, she knew she was being given a gift, an opportunity to change the trajectory of her life, to rediscover herself and her true purpose. "How do you do it?" Kim asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid the magic of the moment would fade if she spoke too loudly. "How do you stay true to yourself with all the pressure and expectations from the world?" Beyoncé smiled, a soft, knowing smile. "It's not easy. I've had my share of struggles, of moments when I questioned everything. But I learned to block out the noise. I focused on the things that truly matter, my family, my art, my faith, and I learned to trust myself. When you trust yourself, Kim, everything else falls into place." Kim nodded slowly, absorbing every word. For the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of clarity. Beyoncé was right. She had spent too long chasing external validation, trying to meet the expectations of others. But now, she realized, that true fulfillment came from within, from being authentic and embracing her own unique path. As the conversation continued, Kim felt a sense of deep respect for Beyoncé, not just as a celebrity, but as a mentor. She had always admired her, from afar, but now she saw her in a completely different light, Beyoncé wasn't just an icon, she was a woman who had found balance and peace in her life, someone who had learned to prioritize what truly mattered. Kim looked at her, feeling a newfound sense of gratitude. "Thank you," she said, her voice sincere. "I don't know if I've ever heard anyone speak so honestly before. I'm really grateful for this conversation." Beyoncé smiled warmly, her eyes glimmering with understanding. "You don't need to thank me. You've already got everything you need inside of you, Kim. Just remember to trust yourself, that's the key." Kim felt a surge of emotion in her chest as she realized how much she had learned in such a short amount of time. The conversation had opened her eyes to a new way of thinking, a new way of living. It wasn't about trying to fit into a mold or constantly striving for approval. It was about being true to herself and trusting that the right opportunities would come when she was aligned with her purpose. As the evening wore on, Kim felt lighter, more at peace than she had in years. The excitement of the party, the flashing cameras, the music, it all seemed distant now, almost irrelevant compared to the profound shift that was taking place inside her. She knew that this encounter with Beyoncé would mark the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one where she would focus not just on external success, but on internal fulfillment. As the night wore on, Kim felt a quiet sense of peace settle over her. The party continued in full swing, but for her, everything had changed. She found herself drifting through the crowd, her mind constantly returning to the conversation with Beyoncé. The words they had exchanged played over and over in her head, as though they were a new mantra she couldn't shake. Kim had always prided herself on being able to control any situation, whether it was a business deal, a public appearance, or a personal challenge. She had learned early on that the key to surviving in the world of fame was to stay one step ahead, always thinking ahead, always striving for more. But now, in the stillness of her mind, she wondered if that approach had truly served her well. Was she truly happy? Or had she been so focused on building her empire that she had neglected the most important aspect of her life, herself? The flashing lights of the party felt distant now, as if they belonged to someone else. As she moved through the crowd, Kim couldn't help but feel the weight of her own reflection pressing down on her. She had spent so many years curating an image for the world to see, but in that quiet moment with Beyoncé, she realized how much she had been hiding from herself. The life she had built was incredible on the surface, success, wealth, influence, but it felt hollow in a way she couldn't explain. Her assistant, who had been keeping an eye on her, approached cautiously. "Kim, are you okay?" he asked, concern in his voice. "You've been quiet all night." Kim smiled, though it was a faraway smile, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm fine," she replied, her voice softer than usual. "Just thinking." "About what?" he pressed, sensing that something deeper was going on. She hesitated, unsure of how to put into words what she was feeling. "I don't know," she admitted finally. "I've spent so much of my life chasing after things, money, fame, success, but I'm starting to wonder if that's really what matters." Her assistant looked at her, puzzled. "But you've got everything anyone could ever want, Kim. You've built a brand that's practically unstoppable. What's missing?" Kim took a deep breath, trying to gather her thoughts. "I guess what's missing is me," she said, the words coming out more easily than she expected. "I've been so focused on what others expect from me, on what the world wants me to be, that I've lost sight of who I really am. I've been so caught up in this whirlwind that I forgot to stop and ask myself, what do I really want?" Her assistant didn't respond immediately, but Kim could see the wheels turning in his mind. He had worked with her for years, and he knew how driven she was, how much she had sacrificed to get where she was. But he had never seen her like this, vulnerable, questioning, uncertain. "I think," he began carefully, "you need to take some time for yourself, Kim. Just step away from everything for a little while. Maybe it's time to reflect on what really matters to you beyond all the noise. Maybe it's time to find peace." Kim nodded, her mind racing with thoughts of what that could look like. Taking a step back, allowing herself to be vulnerable. It was a concept she had never fully embraced, but now she saw the value in it. The weight of expectations had been heavy, and perhaps it was time to release herself from the pressure she had placed on herself. Maybe it was time to redefine success on her own terms. As the party continued, Kim excused herself and retreated to a quieter part of the venue. She sat by the window, looking out over the city lights below. The view was breathtaking, but for the first time Kim didn't feel the need to be part of the chaos. Instead, she allowed herself to be still, to breathe in the calm that surrounded her. She had been moving at such a fast pace for so long that she had forgotten what it felt like to simply exist in the moment. Her thoughts returned to Beyoncé's words. Stay true to who you are. People can sense when you're being authentic. In that moment, Kim realized that she had been living a life shaped by external forces, by the pressures of the world around her. But authenticity, true authenticity, came from within. It wasn't about living up to anyone else's expectations. It was about embracing her own path and trusting herself. Kim closed her eyes, letting the quiet settle over her. She felt a shift inside, a small but powerful transformation beginning to take place. It wasn't something that could be measured in numbers or achievements. It wasn't about fame or fortune. It was about something deeper, a connection to herself, a sense of peace that had been missing for far too long. As she opened her eyes again, Kim felt more certain than ever. She wasn't just a brand, a persona. She was a woman with dreams, with hopes, with her own unique story to tell. And it was time to start living that story, not for anyone else, but for herself. The days that followed the party were quiet for Kim. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to step back from the whirlwind of her usual life. She cancelled meetings, rescheduled public appearances, and took time away from social media. The world around her, which had always felt so fast and demanding, seemed to slow down, and Kim felt an overwhelming sense of relief. She realized how much pressure she had been putting on herself to maintain a perfect image, one that was built on expectations and external validation rather than on her own true desires. During these days of reflection, Kim spent time reconnecting with the things that truly mattered to her. She spent time with her family, enjoying simple moments of togetherness that had been overshadowed by her hectic schedule. She visited her childhood home, taking long walks through the neighborhood, and rediscovered a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. It was as if she was slowly piecing together the parts of herself that had been neglected for so long. One afternoon, as she sat in the garden of her home, Kim received a call from her publicist. Kim, her publicist said, "I've been hearing some whispers in the industry. People are starting to notice a change in you. They're saying you're different, more authentic, more grounded. Whatever it is, it's working." Kim smiled softly. She had known that this time away from the spotlight would be a challenge, but she hadn't expected it to feel so liberating. "Thank you," she said, her voice calm and steady. "I think I'm starting to understand what matters most." After the call ended, Kim sat back in her chair, looking out at the sky as it began to darken. She thought about everything she had learned over the past few weeks, the lessons from Beyoncé, the moments of introspection, and the quiet realizations that had shifted her perspective. She was beginning to understand that true success wasn't about fame or fortune. It was about living authentically, embracing the present moment, and finding peace within herself. Kim had always been known for her strength, for her ability to push through challenges and overcome obstacles. But now she was starting to see strength in a different light. It wasn't just about pushing harder or achieving more. True strength came from within, from the courage to be vulnerable, to question everything she had believed in, and to embrace the unknown. It was a quiet kind of strength, one that didn't need to be displayed for the world to see, but one that emanated from the deepest parts of her soul. Over time, Kim began to make small changes in her life. She started saying no to things that no longer aligned with her values, and she set boundaries with people who had taken too much of her time and energy. She became more selective about the projects she took on, choosing those that resonated with her heart rather than those that simply offered financial gain. For the first time, Kim felt like she was in control, not of her career or her public image, but of her own life and well-being. One evening, as she sat alone in her living room, reflecting on the changes she had made, Kim received another call. this time from Beyoncé. "Kim," Beyoncé said, her voice warm and encouraging, "I've been hearing wonderful things about you. You're doing exactly what I hoped you would do, finding peace and authenticity. I'm proud of you." Kim's heart swelled with gratitude. It meant more to her than she could express to hear those words from Beyoncé, someone she had admired for so long. "Thank you, Beyoncé," she replied softly. "Your words really made me think. They gave me the courage to make some big changes in my life." Beyoncé's voice was filled with understanding. "You've always had that courage, Kim. You just had to find it for yourself. Now keep going. Don't ever lose sight of how you're on the right path." As the call ended, Kim leaned back in her chair, her mind full of possibility. She felt a renewed sense of purpose, one that wasn't driven by the need for external approval, but by her own inner conviction. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt equipped to face them with grace and confidence. The next few months passed by in a blur of quiet transformation. Kim's public image began to shift as well. People noticed the changes in her demeanor, the way she spoke, and the choices she made. No longer did she feel the need to be everything, to everyone. She had learned to prioritize herself, her values, and her true passions. Her social media posts became more personal, more meaningful. Instead of just promoting her products and achievements, she shared moments of vulnerability, talking openly about her journey of self-discovery. She spoke about her struggles with perfectionism, her desire to be more authentic, and the importance of finding balance in a world that constantly demanded more from her. And the response was overwhelming. Her followers, who had once admired her for her glamour and success, now admired her for her courage to be real. Kim's new approach was not without its challenges, of course. There were still pressures from the industry, from her brand, and from the public. But Kim had learned the most important lesson of all, that her worth was not determined by what others thought of her, but by how she saw herself. And as she moved forward on her journey, she knew that she was exactly where she needed to be. As time passed, Kim's life began to take on a new rhythm. The pressure she once felt to be everything for everyone had dissipated, replaced by a newfound clarity. She had learned to trust herself, to lean into her instincts, and to embrace the path that was unfolding before her. No longer driven solely by ambition or the desire to prove herself, Kim now found fulfillment in quieter, more meaningful pursuits. With her renewed focus on authenticity, Kim began to expand her brand in a way that felt truer to her core. She shifted her attention toward projects that aligned with her passions, such as advocating for social justice and empowering women. She became involved in philanthropic efforts that were close to her heart, using her platform to highlight important causes and speak out on issues that mattered to her. One such cause was criminal justice reform. Kim had always been aware of the disparities in the legal system, but it wasn't until she started listening more intently to the stories of those affected that she truly understood the depth of the problem. Inspired by the conversations she had with individuals who had been wrongfully convicted, Kim became determined to use her influence to make a change. Her work in criminal justice reform became one of the most important aspects of her life. She worked tirelessly behind the scenes, meeting with lawmakers, pushing for reforms, and helping to bring attention to cases that had been overlooked. Kim had always been known for her ability to turn heads in the fashion world or on social media, but now she was making a real impact in the world of justice, and it felt more fulfilling than anything else she had ever done. Kim's commitment to social justice didn't stop with criminal reform. She also began to focus on issues of mental health, speaking out about the importance of self-care and the need to break the stigma surrounding mental illness. She had always been transparent about the pressures she faced, but now she was sharing her own journey of healing and self-discovery in a way that felt authentic and powerful. Her public appearances took on a different tone as well. When she stepped onto a stage or into a room, it was no longer just to showcase her latest fashion or business achievement. Instead, she spoke from the heart, sharing her personal journey with others. She talked about her struggles with body image, her challenges in finding balance in a world that constantly demands more, and her journey towards self-acceptance. The Response from her fans and followers was overwhelming. People began to see Kim not just as a celebrity, but as someone who had faced her own battles and had come out stronger on the other side. She became a source of inspiration for many, especially women who had felt trapped by societal expectations or the pressures to be perfect. Kim's vulnerability, once seen as a weakness by some, had become her greatest strength. Despite the growth in her personal and professional life, Kim still faced moments of doubt. There were days when the old insecurities crept in, reminding her of the person she used to be, the woman who lived for validation, the woman who felt like she had to constantly prove her worth. But in those moments, she remembered the lessons she had learned from Beyoncé, the quiet strength that came from embracing who she truly was. Kim had found a new sense of balance, one that allowed her to navigate the demands of her career while remaining true to herself. She knew that she would continue to face challenges, but she also knew that she was stronger now, more grounded, more focused, and more aligned with her true purpose. One afternoon, as she sat in her office reflecting on how far she had come, Kim received a message from Beyoncé. "I see you, Kim," the message read. "You've come a long way, I'm proud of you, and I know you'll continue to do great things. Keep shining your light." Kim smiled as she read the message. It was simple yet powerful. Beyoncé had always been someone who had inspired her from afar, but now she felt as though they were on a journey together. Beyoncé had shown her the way. And now Kim was walking her own path, one that was true to herself, one that wasn't defined by fame or external expectations. As she put down her phone, Kim looked out the window, a sense of peace settling over her. She had come to understand that life wasn't about being perfect or meeting the expectations of others. It was about embracing the journey, learning from each experience, and growing into the person she was meant to be. And in that moment, Kim knew that her story was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. As Kim continued to embrace her newfound authenticity, she found that change was not without its challenges. The shift in her mindset and priorities brought about a wave of resistance, both from within herself and from the outside world. While she had gained clarity on what truly mattered to her, she was also confronted with the realities of living in a world that often didn't value vulnerability or personal growth in the same way. One of the biggest struggles Kim faced was the pressure to maintain her public image. For years, she had built a brand that was synonymous with perfection. Carefully curated photos, glamorous appearances, and an almost unattainable lifestyle. But now, as she began to share more of her personal journey, she found herself vulnerable to criticism. People who had once admired her for her polished image now seemed to question her motives. Some accused her of trying to be something she wasn't, while others wondered if her shift was just a publicity stunt. It was a harsh reality to face, but Kim knew that growth often came with discomfort. The truth was, she had spent so much time constructing a facade that she had forgotten what it felt like to be real. She had built her success on the idea of perfection, but now she was dismantling that idea, piece by piece. And though the process was liberating, it was also unsettling. There were days when Kim felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. She had always been a strong woman, but the vulnerability she was now embracing felt like a double-edged sword. She found herself questioning whether she was doing the right thing, wondering if the world would ever accept her for who she truly was. The fear of failure and rejection lingered in the back of her mind, threatening to pull her back into the world of perfectionism that she had worked so hard to escape. But it was during these moments of doubt that Kim reminded herself of the lessons she had learned from Beyoncé. Beyoncé had taught her the power of authenticity, the importance of staying true to herself even when the world didn't understand. Beyoncé had faced similar challenges in her own career, and yet she had continued to shine, always remaining grounded in her true self. If Beyoncé could do it, so could Kim. Kim began to focus on the things that mattered most: her family, her work in social justice, and her own personal growth. She surrounded herself with people who supported her journey, who encouraged her to be authentic and to continue pursuing her passions. She leaned on her closest friends and family members, who reminded her of her worth and helped her stay grounded when the pressures of the outside world threatened to pull her off course. In her work with criminal justice reform, Kim found a sense of purpose that anchored her during the more difficult times. She had always been passionate about making a difference, but now her advocacy had a personal dimension. The stories of those wrongfully convicted, the families torn apart by the system, these were issues that Kim could no longer ignore. They became her driving force, giving her a sense of purpose that was far deeper than any brand or business achievement. But even in the face of her growing sense of purpose, Kim still struggled with moments of self-doubt. There were times when she felt as though she was walking a tightrope, balancing the demands of her career, her advocacy work, and her personal life. It was a delicate balance, and sometimes it felt as though the weight of it all might be too much to bear. One evening, as Kim sat alone in her study, reflecting on the challenges she had faced, her phone buzzed with a message from Beyoncé. "I know it's hard, Kim," the message read, "but remember, change is always difficult. It's supposed to be. You're on the right path, and the world will catch up. Keep going." Kim read the message and felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. Beyoncé's words were a reminder that she wasn't alone in her journey. Change was never easy, but it was necessary for growth. Kim had come so far already, and she knew that the challenges she faced were just part of the process. They were the growing pains that came with stepping into a new version of herself. The next day, Kim found herself at another crossroads. She had been offered a lucrative business opportunity, one that promised to expand her brand even further. But as she looked at the contract, she realized something. The opportunity didn't align with her current values. It was tempting, yes, but it wasn't the direction she wanted to go anymore. She knew she had to turn it down, despite the potential financial gain. For Kim, this was a turning point. She realized that she was no longer motivated by external validation or material success. What mattered now was the impact she could make, the difference she could create in the world, and that realization gave her the strength to continue on her path, even when it wasn't the easiest option. As the weeks passed, Kim's commitment to her new path solidified. She became more vocal about her values, speaking openly about the importance of authenticity and self-care. She shared her journey with her followers, offering a glimpse into her life as she navigated the complexities of fame, family, and personal growth. The more she shared, the more her followers responded with support and gratitude. They saw Kim not as a flawless icon, but as a real, relatable woman who was trying to make a difference. The challenges were far from over, but Kim knew that she had come a long way. The journey of self-discovery was never easy, but it was one she was committed to completing, and with every step, she felt stronger, more grounded, and more at peace with who she had become. As Kim's journey of self-discovery continued, something remarkable began to happen. The changes she had made in her own life started to ripple outward, affecting the people around her. It wasn't just her public image. That was shifting. It was her entire way of being. Her family, friends, and even her colleagues began to notice the transformation, and the effects were profound. Kim's relationship with her family had always been a cornerstone of her life, but now there was a deeper level of connection. She found herself spending more quality time with her children, with her mother and with her sisters. The busy schedules that had once kept them all apart now seemed less important. Kim made a conscious effort to prioritize the people who mattered most to her, and in doing so, she discovered a sense of joy and fulfillment that she hadn't known in years. Her relationship with her sisters, in particular, had always been close, but with the pressures of their individual careers, they had sometimes grown distant. However, as Kim embraced her true self, she found that her bond with her sisters grew even stronger. They began to open up to each other in new ways, sharing their own struggles and victories, offering support and encouragement in a way they hadn't before. It was a beautiful reminder of the importance of family, of the need to nurture those relationships even when life got busy. Kim also began to feel a greater sense of responsibility toward her community. She had always been involved in charity work, but now her involvement took on a new depth. As she became more vocal about the causes she cared about, she found herself connecting with others who shared her passions. She began to collaborate with organizations that focused on social justice, equality, and mental health, using her platform to raise awareness and make a tangible difference. The more Kim spoke out, the more she realized how much her words and actions could impact the world. It wasn't about being perfect or having all the answers. It was about showing up, being vulnerable, and using her voice to advocate for those who didn't have one. It was about using her privilege and influence to create positive change. Her work with criminal justice reform, which had initially started as a personal passion, began to gain significant traction. Kim worked closely with legal experts, activists, and lawmakers to bring attention to the flaws in the justice system and push for real change. She became a force to be reckoned with in the world of social justice, using her platform to highlight the stories of individuals who had been wrongfully convicted or trapped in the system. And in doing so, she inspired others to take action as well. Her followers, too, began to take notice of the changes in Kim. At first, they had been skeptical. Some even accused her of being insincere, of using her newfound vulnerability as a marketing tool. But as they saw her continue to live authentically, as they witnessed the depth of her commitment to making a difference, they began to understand that this was not just a phase. It was a transformation that had taken root in her soul. Kim's social media presence became more genuine, more heartfelt. She shared her struggles and triumphs, her personal growth, and the lessons she had learned along the way. She was no longer the flawless, untouchable icon that people had once admired. Instead, she was a real woman with real challenges, and that authenticity resonated with her audience. They began to see her not as a celebrity, but as someone who had faced her own battles and emerged stronger on the other side. And the more Kim embraced her vulnerability, the more her audience responded. Messages poured in from people who felt inspired by her story, who saw her as a role model, not for her perfection, but for her courage to be imperfect. Women, especially, began to see her as a symbol of strength, not because she was flawless, but because she had the courage to be real in a world that often demanded something else. As Kim's influence continued to grow, she found herself at the center of conversations about what it meant to be a woman in the public eye. She had always been criticized for her image, for the way she had built her career. But now, as she embraced authenticity, she was starting to redefine what it meant to be a successful woman. She was no longer just the sum of her looks or her business ventures. She was a multifaceted woman, someone who had learned to balance her career, her family, and her personal growth. She was someone who used her platform to create meaningful change, someone who wasn't afraid to speak up about the issues that mattered. Kim knew that there would still be challenges ahead. She wasn't naive enough to think that the road ahead would be easy, but for the first time, she felt equipped to handle whatever came her way. She had learned to trust herself, to embrace the discomfort that came with change, and to stay true to her values. And in doing so, she had created a ripple effect that was touching the lives of those around her, inspiring them to embrace their own authenticity and make a difference in their own communities. As Kim sat back and reflected on the journey she had been on, she realized that this transformation was more than just a personal change. It was a movement. It was a shift in the way people viewed fame, success, and authenticity. And it was a reminder that true strength comes not from perfection, but from the courage to be real, to be vulnerable, and to use your voice to make the world a better place. As the months continued to pass, Kim found herself evolving in ways she had never expected. The shift from focusing solely on fame and material success to embracing authenticity and purpose had created a new sense of fulfillment in her life. She no longer measured success by the number of followers she had or the deals she closed. Instead, she began to define success in a completely different way, by the positive impact she could make, by the relationships she cultivated, and by the peace she had found within herself. One of the most profound changes was in her approach to her career. Kim had always been a fierce businesswoman, constantly seeking new opportunities and ways to expand her empire. But now she was more selective about the projects she took on. She wanted to ensure that the ventures she pursued aligned with her core values and the vision she had for herself. Her team noticed the shift as well. They had always admired her drive and ambition, but now they saw a new sense of clarity in her decisions, Kim was no longer just chasing success for the sake of it. She was focused on creating a legacy, one that was rooted in authenticity, empowerment, and social change. And it wasn't just about what she could gain from her ventures. It was about what she could give back to the world. Kim's newfound perspective on success led her to explore new avenues. She began to dive deeper into her passion for social justice, expanding her work in criminal justice reform. She continued advocating for policy changes, pushing for reform in the legal system, and working with organizations to raise awareness about the systemic issues that needed to be addressed. But she also began to look at other areas where she could make a difference. One of the most significant projects she took on was creating a mentorship program for young women. As she reflected on her own journey, Kim realized that she had been fortunate to have a strong support system, but not everyone had the same access to guidance and resources. She wanted to give back to the younger generation, to provide them with the tools, knowledge, and confidence to pursue their dreams and navigate the challenges of life. The mentorship program quickly gained traction. Kim used her platform to connect with young women from diverse backgrounds and offered them the opportunity to learn from her experiences. The program became more than just a business initiative. It became a way for Kim to use her influence to empower others, to help them overcome the obstacles she had faced, and to inspire them to be unapologetically themselves. Her work in this area also led her to collaborate with other prominent women who were equally passionate about empowering the next generation. Kim partnered with activists, entrepreneurs, and educators, all of whom shared her vision for creating a more inclusive and supportive world for women. Together, they created workshops, seminars, and online resources designed to equip young women with the skills and knowledge they needed to succeed. As the program grew, Kim began to see the tangible results of her efforts. The young women she mentored started to flourish, gaining confidence and pursuing their own passions with a sense of purpose. Some of them even went on to start their own businesses, to advocate for causes they believed in, or to become leaders in their communities. Watching them thrive filled Kim with a deep sense of pride and fulfillment. It was a reminder that true success wasn't about accumulating wealth or fame. It was about creating a lasting, positive impact on the lives of others. But Kim knew that her journey was far from over. As much as she had accomplished, she understood that there was always more work to be done. There were still systemic issues to address, still women to empower, and still communities to uplift. She remained committed to her mission, knowing that each step she took brought her closer to the vision she had for herself and for the world. And through it all, Kim continued to embrace the lessons she had learned along the way. She had come to understand that success was not a destination, but a continuous journey, one that was shaped by the choices she made and the impact she had on those around her. She had learned to let go of the need for perfection, to embrace her flaws, and to use her platform for good. She had become a role model for others, not because of her wealth or status, but because she had the courage to be real and to pursue a life of purpose. As Kim looked back on her journey, she marveled at how far she had come. She had started out as a woman focused on fame and success, but now she was someone who had found peace in her authenticity. She had learned to trust herself, to embrace her vulnerability, and to live a life that was true to her values. And as she looked toward the future, she knew that the best was yet to come. As the years passed, Kim's transformation from a reality TV star to a woman of influence and purpose became more evident. She had found her place in the world, not just as a celebrity, but as a change maker, someone who used her voice and platform to make a difference. Her work in criminal justice reform, her mentorship program for young women, and her advocacy for mental health had all become integral parts of her legacy. But it wasn't just about the projects or initiatives she had undertaken, it was about the way she had approached them. Kim had learned that true leadership came from vulnerability, from showing up authentically and sharing the struggles that came with the journey. She had learned that it was okay to be imperfect, that it was okay to stumble along the way, as long as you kept moving forward with purpose and conviction. Her influence had grown beyond the realms of social media and business. Kim had become a trusted voice in the world of social justice and women's empowerment. She was invited to speak at conferences, panel discussions and forums, where she shared her experiences and insights with others who were working towards similar goals. Her words carried weight, not because of her fame, but because they were rooted in her own lived experience. She wasn't just speaking to impress, she was speaking to inspire change. Through it all, Kim remained grounded in her values. She continued to prioritize her family, her community, and her own well-being. She had learned the hard way that success without balance was empty, that the pursuit of fame and fortune could lead to a life that was unfulfilling. And so she made sure that every decision she made, every action she took, was aligned with her true purpose. Kim's family remained an essential part of her life. She had always been close to her children, but as they grew older, she found herself spending even more time with them.